On this Veterans Day and always, we join the nation in expressing our deep appreciation to all of the servicemen and women who've made the unselfish sacrifice to serve this country. We thank you for your service and your sacrifice, and we welcome you to another episode of WIN TV. I'm Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer, and I hope you've had a chance to pick up a copy of this week's Washington Informer. I always like to show, as you know, the print issue. And in this issue, we did spend a lot of time and space honoring those men and women, as I mentioned before, who we'll have on the show, but also those that we were able to capture thanks to Roy Lewis, our photographer, and others who captured those men and women throughout the Washington area who have given their service and kind of looking at some of what they're going through to maintain their lives. To maintain their lives. It's a struggle being a veteran, and some have good stories and some are struggling. So we have guests on with us today to talk about some of those issues. I want to thank Mike Lassiter. He just chimed in and said he's watching. He is now retired. Congratulations to you, Mike, for the many years of service you gave to Metro and did your best to make sure that the Metro system was safe for all of us. You had some tremendous stories to tell at your retirement event, which I was really honored to be a part of, and some stories that we never think about when it comes to what you all do in your service to make sure that our public transportation system is a safe place to be. And of course, I always like to see my mom, Vera Abbott, who chimed in as well. So thank you for joining us today. And we know that if you haven't picked up your copy of the Washington Informer, that you can get yours, and you all subscribe, but get for the print edition, but you can get it online at washingtoninformer.com. There, not only can you see the digital edition, but there's so much more news and information there. And we hope that when you visit the site, that you'll also sign up. Become one of those who gets the Informer online every week. We certainly do appreciate you, and we count on your support. If you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and hit share so your followers can see the broadcast. And if you're watching on Twitter, be sure to follow us and we'll follow you back. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. Again, that's one word, and you can see it posted there. Washington Informer TV, no spaces. We look forward, and we're so happy for those who have signed up to be a part of our digital community. So, the midterm elections were held this week, and the drama that was predicted turned out to be a lot different than expected. The Washington Informer reporter team will join us in a few minutes to share their views and the highlights of the stories that they wrote this week on the elections, both locally and nationally, and what impact they predict, because, journalists can sometimes be in the business of making predictions of what this election will have on 2024. It's right around the corner. And we will be looking, that's a big election. It's because that's one where we will be deciding who will be the next man or woman to serve in a presidential capacity here in America, in the United States. But before that, our first segment today, after we talk with our reporters, is sponsored by the American Heart Association. And a few weeks ago, we talked to Cynthia Cifuentes and Gail Harris Berry about the Heart Week, American Heart Week, and Heart Walk. I'm sorry, thank you, Shabby, American Heart Walk. And for those who didn't participate, I know it was a great event, and the reason for doing that walk, one is to make sure that we get information out about heart health, as well as helping to raise money for the Heart Association. I think that's a great event. So today we'll be joined by Dr. Yolandra Hancock, who's a board member of the American Heart Association of the Greater Washington region. And she's going to share with us some information about the Red Chair series. We're also going to talk to retired Army Brigadier General Audrey Drake, who will be in a conversation with James Wright, one of our senior reporters here. And I'm looking forward to hearing more from retired Army Brigadier General Drake, whose service is just very impressive. And we're glad that she's here to share, as well as Lieutenant Colonel Moesha Wilson from the Joint Base Senior. She's the Joint Base Senior Chaplain of the 11th Wing at Joint Base Anacostia Bowling. And they're both going to share their own experiences about being in the military and thoughts about Veterans Day. We're also going to have Lorraine Wright, co-founder and director of Sheck's House Corporation, which is located right here in Ward 8 in Southeast DC. And she's going to talk to us about her efforts to assist veterans in the DC area. And last but not least, I'm not sure if that's last, but we are really excited to have the folks from the William O. Lockridge Foundation. Dancing with the Scholars is a big event that happens in DC every year. I'm not sure which number this is, but Wanda Lockridge, who is the founder and chair of the foundation, will give us details about the upcoming Dancing with the Scholars. It's next Saturday. So get out your credit card right now, because you're going to want to get tickets to this event. And when she gives that information, we want to make sure that you are in the place on that date. So we have her and some of her members of the board to talk with us. But getting back to the midterm elections, our senior reporters, James Wright, Sam P.K. Collins, and Stacy Brown were on the ground on Tuesday night, giving us the feedback and helping us to get these stories told for our readers. And we are so excited to have the three of you all with us today. I hope you've had at least a 10-minute nap since Monday, because I know it was a lot. So I'm gonna start with you, Stacy, because not only were you up with your Let It Be Known show on Tuesday morning, you had a live broadcast on Tuesday evening that lasted, I don't know, maybe 2-3 hours, maybe 4. Yeah. We'll talk about that. And then gave us a national look at what this election was all about. So let's get your feedback on kind of what you saw and this, what they call the red wave that really didn't happen.
It's funny you start with that, because the first thing that came to my mind, and this is still going on right now, the Colorado 3 race with Lauren Boebert, and why that came to mind, because the last time she tweeted, this was Tuesday before the election began, Tuesday morning, she tweeted that the red wave is coming. And by Wednesday, someone responded to a tweet and said, I guess that red wave was nothing more than bloating and cramping. And so, that red wave did not happen. And in fact, as we sit here on Friday morning, there is still a chance that the Democrats will retain control of the House. They're positioned to add a seat in the Senate, and they could. It's not likely, but they still are in a position to retain control of the House. So it's really interesting. I think this came down to people, that expression, Denise, they eat their own. And this is the Republicans, Trump faction and the DeSantis faction. And when you look at the DeSantis faction, which was born out of Trump, now they've turned on each other. And Trump is now seen by half the Republican Party as poison, and the other half, they still have that MAGA crowd. But they turned on each other. And this election also showed something that's more important than that, because I don't want to really go down that. I know we don't really want to go down that road, but more important than that, it also showed that mainstream media continues to lie to us. They had us believe that Black men were not going to support Stacey Abrams. They had us believe that Black people were not going to, the Black voters were not going to show up, and that they had given up. All that proved so much to be untrue. What it was disinformation. And we know what disinformation and misinformation has done in the past. They attempted it big time. Even the removal of Tiffany Cross from MSNBC had everything to do with the election. And so when the outcome now we're seeing the outcome, we're seeing in state houses, Democrats taking control of state houses. We're seeing We saw 22 Democrats become governors, win the governor's races. Right, that was not expected.
So,
Um,
Stacey, if I can jump in really
mhm.
quickly, because one, because we don't have a lot of time, but two, because and I want to get Sam and James in, but a lot of folks ask young people, black people, all kinds of folks who are sort of felt who believe in some ways they're disenfranchised will ask, I mean, so what's in this for me?
Mhm.
Okay, so I answered your call, you knocked on my door. I mean, they say young folks came out in droves, young black people came out in droves.
Yep.
And so, they've answered the call, going back to military service, right? They answered the call, but what's in it for them? And when you look at what we've seen, I heard earlier today that, we thought we were going to have a big hit with the Congressional Black Caucus. Seems as though that those numbers won't dwindle. I think we'll still have the 58 members. At least this is something I heard on another
Mhm.
news program. So, I mean, and we have, a Gen Zer, young black man out of,
Max Frost
right,
out of
out of
Florida.
Florida. So, I mean, is there someone said to me last night, this is a turn of events. This means that, we're going to be seeing a whole lot more black leadership in America. I don't know I'm going to
Well,
get
more
your feedback
importantly,
on that.
Denise, something is, and I think Sam probably can speak well to this. But more
Mhm.
importantly, you said it, young Maxwell Frost, 25 years old, first generation Z in the House, U.S. House, the winner seat in U.S. House. The young ones are now stepping up, and I think that the change is the assertion that they need to be in those positions now, in the positions of making decisions. The younger ones, I think, is a model for the black press, to be honest. But that's a whole nother story. But I'll let you guys
We're
do that.
working on it. We're working on it. Yeah, Sam, because you looked at what happened here in DC, and James, I should have gone the opposite direction, but you looked at a race that really, and you wrote the story, sort of um, tilted based on race and other issues. But the at-large race in DC, the fact that and James, you can jump in here too about McDuffie, who changed parties. Independents are pretty, I think, significant. Their role in this election, not only locally and nationally. What did you see, Sam?
I saw a schism within the progressive base. Those who consider themselves progressives, there was a schism along racial lines, and there was a characterization, particularly among supporters of Alyssa Silverman, that Kenyon McDuffie was a pawn of developers. So when they saw progressive support around him, and they saw and they saw black people in particular, those who live east of the river and those all around the city for that matter. Those who remember McDuffie for the Near Act, who remember his work around baby bonds, supporting black businesses, when they saw that support coming around him and white progressives reacted in a cold way, black progressives, in a sense, looked at it as very paternalistic, and they saw that as indicative of their relationship with Alyssa Silverman. Alyssa Silverman, who over the last 8 years has been characterized as somebody who has been sort of cold to the black community, even with the progressive work that she has done. And you saw that in the way that Ward 7 turned out for her. And you saw that in the way that some parts west of the park, as well as east of Rock Creek Park, um, came out for Kenyon McDuffie. In comparison to what happened in 2018 when Alyssa Silverman just beat Dion Reader by 12 points. But what we were looking at was, one, a racial schism, and also the Office of Campaign Finance ruling that found Alyssa Silverman in violation of campaign finance rules when she commissioned that Ward 3 poll. So in regards to that, Alyssa Silverman has garnered a reputation as somebody who is always holding people accountable. So when that ruling came about, there was a call, as I wrote about a couple of weeks ago, there was a call to have her pretty much step out of the race. So over the last couple of months and the last couple of weeks in particular, the racial schisms really heated up in the race. All because, once again, black residents and black voters, they don't like being told by others who to vote for and what to support.
Interesting, James.
Well, Sam did a pretty good compilation in terms of the at-large race. Anita Bonds, the Democrat, won comfortably. As a matter of fact, DC continues to be a Democratic bastion. Looks like that won't be changing anytime soon. When I traveled around the city to go to the polling places, people basically, Denise told me that they're comfortable in terms of Washington, D.C. They like the growth. They like what's going on. And many people don't hold the high crime rate here, which is really not that high, but I'll get into that later. But they don't hold her accountable to that. So they're comfortable with the leadership that they have with Bowser and Council Chairman Mendelson and the newbies that are coming on the council, Ward 5, Zachary Parker, Matt Fruman, are progressives, but they're not those hardline progressives that Sam was just speaking about a second ago.
What I couldn't understand, and maybe someone can help me to understand this, I looked at the numbers a couple of days ago. I don't know that it's still the same, but Ward 7 and 8 really came out in bigger numbers than I, thought they would for, what was his name?
That's
James
true.
Red
Grant,
Red
yes, that
Grant.
is true.
Yeah, 20 some percent.
Yes.
And so it seems no matter what, it seems as though the mayor has had a difficult time. Bowser's having a difficult time to convince voters to a large degree in Ward 7 and 8 that she has their interest at heart. And so, but I don't know how would you explain that, or how do you explain that?
Well, many, not all, but many people in Ward 7 and Ward 8 feel that Muriel Bowser is not responsive to their needs. They feel that she is more responsive to people west of the Anacostia River. And they also note the fact that many of the development projects in the city are taking place west of the Anacostia River. And they pin that on her. And they just don't think that she's sensitive to the concerns of Ward 7 and Ward 8, simply because she's just not interested in low-income people. Whether that's true is debatable, but the point is the perception is there, and the Bowser people really haven't done a lot to dispel that either.
And I would suggest that might be debatable as well. But
if
Sam,
I
go
may,
ahead. Yes, please.
in regards to Red Grant, he started his campaign, if I recall correctly, over a year and a half ago at the Frederick Douglass House, and he positioned himself as a son of Washington, D.C. He came out of Tyler House, which is located along North Capitol Street. After he came back from an HBCU, he transferred to UDC, and he got his start here as a nonprofit organizer, somebody who worked at DPR, and somebody who gave youth a lot of opportunities. And even as he campaigned, he launched a nonprofit of his own where young people were able to use their talents to produce media and to channel that energy that they would have used otherwise for non-productive activities. So for people east of the Anacostia River, Red Grant, just like Councilmember Trayon White, represented somebody who they can look at and see themselves in, somebody who reflects their interests, somebody who is truly grassroots. And Red Grant ran a pretty grassroots campaign. He hit all 8 wards, even during the primary, and he told me this. He didn't necessarily tell me this, but what I will say is that as an independent, you have the luxury and you have the advantage of campaigning all throughout campaign season, even as your Democratic opponents vie for that spot. So he did what he did all throughout the summer months and the fall months, which is why he garnered almost 12% of the vote, which is kind of impressive. Well, which is impressive in itself in a Democratic city. And it goes to show once again what Muriel Bowser is lacking in some respects.
I think it's a good point, and that's one reason I didn't want this to go without acknowledging, what he was able to accomplish in this race. It's not the first time we've seen him run. Clearly, it won't be the last time. And so, but I was just curious about, and I think he lives in Ward 8, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Sam?
Yes, ma'am. His
Right.
daughter
That's what I
attends a
thought.
Ward 8's public school, as a matter of fact.
Right, right. So all that kind of makes sense. Let me ask you before we close out. I mean, we're looking at 2024, Stacey, and Sam and James. I mean, for us, you know, Bowser's one, and so she has 4 more years. Eleanor, I don't know what will happen with her in 2 years. We don't have we don't have the Prince George's piece on this, but Prince Marilyn is just like the star of the show in many ways for the nation as it relates to Black leadership. But what do you think? What would be your predictions for 2024, and what we'll be able to accomplish, Stacey?
Well, I think nationally, at least, and hopefully in the district too, you will see things get younger for a change. The representatives get younger, senators get. I think that the groundwork was really laid in this election. And by the way, Howard University law school graduate, Summer Lee becomes the first Black woman to represent the state of Pennsylvania in Congress. She won the U.S. House seat, so I think we should have mentioned that for sure. She's only 34 years old too, and she is said to be a firebrand. But I think you'll see it get younger. Now, having said that, of course, Biden will be 80 plus years old running for re-election if he does run for re-election. Trump is expected to announce his re-election in the next few days. There was a thought he was going to announce it the night of the midterms, but he was convinced otherwise, apparently, and he'll be 80 something. So it'll be interesting to watch which party puts up. Now, the Democrats, if the president decides to run, they may not put anybody up. It's always one of those things. It's dangerous to put up someone against the incumbent president, but they just may put a younger person up. But you can expect DeSantis, of course, is going to be the early favor. He is the early favor for 2024 for the Republican side. But I can guarantee you they're going to put up. You're going to see some young ones emerge for that as well.
James, Sam, what do you predict in the DMV or in the district in particular in 2024? I mean, I know that issues of crime, but I think, you know, economic development or economic issues. I mean, we're in the midst of what may be inflationary issues, pocketbook issues. There's still gentrification happening throughout the city. What do you think? What would be your prediction with regards to how the council will maybe look in the next couple of years?
I predict the council will be less progressive. Their leader is gone. Alyssa Silverman is gone, and she's being replaced by Kenya McDuffie in a more high-profile position as an at-large council member. Also, because you have Zachary Parker and Matt Fruman coming in, and they are progressive, but they're not leaders of the progressive wing of that body yet, you're going to have a more moderate stance in terms of policy in the DC Council. Plus, of course, you got the big moderate, DC Council Chairman Phil Mickelson. So the progressives are going to take a hit in terms of for the next 2 years because they just don't have their leader there.
Sam?
On the local, and I would say to an extent the national level, I see an independent movement on the rise a bit. And it's up to people who call themselves independent. It's up to them to figure out how to organize along those lines and to build a movement that will demand and command more respect from elected officials. Because people registered as Democrat but aren't necessarily Democratic in nature, they secured those votes and secured these victories on Tuesday. They were a significant portion. That was all just about getting a return on their investment. And once the independents learn how to do that, then we'll see some significant change. But there's potential, definitely.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us today, and thank you for your analysis of what we saw on Tuesday. And keep up the great work. We got a lot of work ahead of us as we, help folks to understand what this all means and getting folks ready for I mean, if we don't have election anxiety over now, we need to gear up for what's going to happen in in the next 2 years. The commercials will start coming again pretty soon. You say 18 months ahead? Yes, there are people about to announce their plans in 2024 in just a couple of days. So we'll be there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All righty. So we're going to turn now, and if you all have any questions, if you think that there's some issues that we need to be covering here at the Washington Informer with our anything dealing with local issues, please send us an email at news@washingtoninformer.com. That's news@washingtoninformer.com, and we will be on that and look forward to hearing from you. But as I said earlier, this portion that we're going into right now of our program is sponsored by the American Heart Association. And with us is Dr. Yolanda Hancock, a pediatrician and board member of the American Heart Association of the Greater Washington region. I think we have a video, and then we will be here with Dr. Hancock.
Hello, I'm Dr. Yolanda Hancock, a proud member of the American Heart Association, Greater Washington Region Board of Directors, and I am elated to be part of our Red Chair Series conversations, where we inform and empower women to be strong advocates for their health and well-being, and for the health and well-being of women and girls in their lives. Huge thanks to Johns Hopkins Medicine for their support of our Red Chair Series.
And thank you, Dr. Hancock, for being with us today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. So we understand that Johns Hopkins Medicine and the National Capital Region and American Heart Association, you all are launching a series of short educational conversations, again, called the Red Chair Series on women's heart health. I love that idea. I love conversations, clearly, right?
Absolutely.
So tell us about the series and why you all is this the first and why you decided to take this approach?
Very good questions. One, thank you for the opportunity to speak on our Red Chair Series, and even more importantly, women's heart health. We know that heart disease, cardiovascular disease, is the #1 killer of women. 1 in 3 deaths each year among women is due to heart disease. And we have to really think through, like, that's a third of our mothers, our sisters, our aunties, our grandmothers. I lost my great-grandmother to heart disease. My grandmother has thankfully survived 3 small heart attacks. So heart disease within the family is really near and dear to my heart. And these are women we can't bear to live without, right? So it's important for us to create conversations around heart health. That's why, through the support of Johns Hopkins Medicine, as you mentioned, anchored by Sibley Hospital and suburban hospitals, we were able to have these conversations. The American Heart Association really wanted to empower women to have the information needed to transform not just their heart health, but the heart health of women and girls in their lives. With each 5-minute episode, we're able to cover a gamut of information, really having meaningful conversation with leading female physicians and other practitioners in the space of heart disease. Looking at women as caregivers and the stress associated with it, looking at the significant risk of heart disease among pregnant women. We know that cardiovascular disease, particularly high blood pressure, is the #1 killer of pregnant and postpartum women. So to be able to create a conversation around that, particularly for Black women specifically, is so important. And then we finish the series out with a conversation for women about what do we do. A lot of times
that was going to be my question. Yeah.
There's a lot of information about how it's the #1 killer and all the things, right? But so what are we doing about it? That's how we end the series out, with giving women the information that they need and want to make a difference in their lives and in the lives of the women and girls within their families and in their social circles.
It seems to me, and I know people who are struggling with heart disease, and it's like, who can they connect with? And you don't think about the American Heart Association, and we should. That's why we're doing this show, because sometimes you need that hand. It's not necessarily the doctor who's going to prescribe another thing, or your friend who has the same problem that you have, and you all are talking about the woes of having this problem. But someone who can really sort of motivate you to know what kinds of questions to ask when you see your physician, what you should be eating, not eating. That's how I see the American Heart Association. Now, you tell me whether that's the case and whether the series is actually going to address some of those concerns.
No, absolutely. I think that's one of the main purposes of the Red Chair series is to do exactly what you just described. It isn't simply laying out facts and giving statistics. It's having comfortable conversations with people who just happen to be experts in their field. And the beauty of this Red Chair series is that it's a diversity of experts. So it isn't just a bunch of doctors talking. We have a woman who really focuses on the caregiver. Ms. Bailey focuses on the stress associated with being a caregiver for some of us who are in that sandwich generation where we're raising children and taking care of our parents. Not only that, part of this conversation in this Red Chair series is focusing on mind, body, heart health connections. And we don't often talk about that in medicine, but with this Red Chair series, we dedicate time to do just that.
So how will people be able to find the conversations, the videos?
I'm glad you asked. The videos are going to be available at www.dcgored.heart.org. All right. So that's www.dcgored.heart.org. We're also launching this video on November 17th next week. We're having an amazing event. I hope that you guys can come out and join us, where it will be networking, opportunities, connection with other individuals. We have a phenomenal panel where there will be one of the panel members talking about an incredible survival story. So make sure you go to www.dcgored.heart.org to get more information so that you can come out and join us. In that conversation, not only will we be launching the Red Chair series, we're also going to have conversations related to some of the issues that you just raised, having real like girlfriend conversations around heart health, especially given the fact that a lot of times people see heart disease as a man's disease. They assume that more men die from heart disease than women. And I think part of it is the media perception that's put out. We hear a lot more about men dying from heart disease, but more women actually die from heart disease than men. And part of the reason is that women present differently. So a lot of times we assume it's going to be the classic elephant on your chest, I can't breathe pressure kind of experience. But for women, we actually experience it more pain in our jaw, pain in our belly. So women may be diagnosed with reflux when in actuality it's a heart attack. We know that studies show that specifically for African-American women, we are discounted when we show up in emergency departments. They assume that we just have a little gastritis. It must be something we ate, right? We ate something fried, and that's the reflection of their diet, when in actuality, it's a heart attack. And we've been sent home having active heart attacks simply because we've been discounted. And part of the role of the American Heart Association, especially Go Red for Women, over nearly 20 years, we've been in the space of partnering with women to have a clear understanding of what heart disease is and what we need to do to prevent it.
Yeah, I remember the guest we had on the show previously had 5 heart attacks before somebody finally took her seriously. And that's just awful. And also, I think women may have a tendency to ignore pain.
You're right. You're absolutely right. We get into that caregiver mode, particularly for Black women. We get into that, put our capes on and fly away, and the pain, that dull ache, then becomes a loud booming voice. I always say, be in tune with your body. Your body will whisper first, and then it will scream. We don't want it screaming. The American Heart Association, particularly Go Red for Women, we go over information like knowing what your numbers are. If you go to Go Red for Women right now, there's a link that shows you what those numbers are. They include your BMI, although I know for Black folks are like, BMI, that's for that that's about white folks and how they weigh and whatever, but it's what we have for right now. So right. BMI of 25 or less is the goal, right? Blood pressure with a systolic blood pressure of 120, a diastolic blood pressure of 80, so 120/80 or less. blood sugar if you're doing fasting of 100 or less. If your physician or healthcare professional is getting a hemoglobin A1C, you want it to be less than 5.7. And then, of course, cholesterol, having it be less than 200, depending on whether or not you have diabetes. With diabetes, we like to be a little bit more aggressive in order to decrease the risk of heart disease. And then breaking that cholesterol down, making sure that you take a peek at your LDL and your HDL and your LDL to make sure that your good cholesterol is high and your bad cholesterol LDL is low.
Wonderful. Dr. Hancock, I appreciate all that you shared with us. I didn't ask who you are. I want people to know. I mean, I said you're a pediatrician, but and it's interesting, you're a pediatrician, so you really get to see kind of how heart disease takes shape,
Right.
as you watch children grow. Because I'm sure that there's an issue with heart disease in children as well. But tell us a little bit about you before I let you go, because I want folks, you present it well, and I just want to know people to know who you are.
So I am both a pediatrician and an obesity medicine specialist. The other hat that I wear is in public health. I have self-proclaimed myself as a public health shero, really partnering with community to be able to talk through these health issues, specifically addressing health disparities, but being a trusted source of health information so that we can transform health and change. At my health center, our mantra is transforming health generations at a time. And part of that role gets to be serving on the board for the American Heart Association Greater Washington Region. Just want to quickly share our social media so that folks can tap in and share these videos, because sharing is caring, right? So Facebook, we are Greater Washington AHA, and on Twitter and Instagram, we're at Heart of GWR. So make sure you follow us on social media, share this really important information, because it truly can change lives. And to your point about being a pediatrician, if I had one thing to add before we part, it would be, as mommies, aunties, grandmommies, sisters, cousins, in the adult space, it is our job collectively to share this information with each other so that we can transform the space that my daughter's generation grows up in, so that when they are in our shoes and they're being interviewed, the story is different. Instead, we're talking about how we were able to transform health because of knowledge and empowerment. And part of the job of the American Heart Association has been to be a conduit of that information, to be a trusted source.
I agree. Someone just posted, you are a shero when it comes to heart disease. And we really do appreciate you being with us today, and the American Heart Association for sponsoring this segment. It's really important. And, as with the Washington Informer and WIN TV, again, we want to tell different stories.
Absolutely.
And so that's why we enjoy partnering with organizations and individuals like you to see what we can do to sort of make that shift, so that we can tell a different story. So you're always welcome here. Please come back. We'll talk about some other issues, especially those that relate to children and heart health and obesity and all of that. You're now our shero. So thanks a lot for being with us. And we're going to remind folks to go to the website, because they may want to come to that event on the 17th. And I think, go ahead. I'm sorry.
www.dcgored.heart.org. Come join us on November 17th. You'll get to meet and greet, come give me a hug, and enjoy the launch of the Red Chair series.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you so very much, Dr. Hancock.
Thank you.
All righty. Again, that segment was brought to us by the American Heart Association, and we're going to continue partnering with organizations that can help to share great information with us to make sure that we have a better quality of life. And speaking of quality of life, we're glad to bring on Brigadier General Audrey Drake, who has made just everything possible because of the service that she's given. And I'm going to bring on James Wright as well. But Dr. Drake, again, Brigadier General, I'm calling you doctor now. I'm giving you a new title. But just thank you so much for all that you have done and your service. And I will now turn you over to James Wright. Thank you.
Good afternoon, General Drake. It is good to see you. It's always good to see you. I see you a lot. We are both members of Asbury United Methodist Church. Let me just say that you are one of our most distinguished members of the church, and thank you for your service. Why did you decide to become a nurse?
I I can never remember not wanting to be a nurse. Even when I was a little girl growing up, I wanted to be a nurse. So there was something about being a nurse and taking care of people that was kind of inherent with me.
Why did you decide to go into the military?
I had a very good friend who was the chief nurse of a unit who needed someone with an education background to work with the licensed practical nurses education program in her unit. She had men, mostly men at that time in the program, who were not adhering to the routines for studying, going to school, doing the things that they should do to be successful in that program. And they were being paid on active, almost the equivalent of active duty to attend that school. So I came on, worked with her, worked with the students, and made that program a real success. When we were deployed, we were the only unit, only National Guard unit deployed where all the LPNs were licensed. And after Desert Storm, the
Mhm.
National Guard Bureau made that a requirement for all the other units. So we set the leadership for that.
Our publisher, Denise Rollock Barnes, says that she could sit a whole day and listen to you tell your stories. And so can I. Basically, in terms of the DC National Guard, could you talk about your work with the DC National Guard?
Well, I was deployed to Desert Storm as the chief nurse for the 115th MASH, one of the units in the DC National Guard. We were deployed to Saudi Arabia, set up the MASH hospital, and took care of wounded soldiers until they started moving faster than we could set that hospital up. So we became part of a combat support hospital where we continued to take care of wounded soldiers in Desert Storm. When we returned from active duty, I became the first nurse in the DC National Guard to command a unit. And being a commander a unit requires very unique leadership and communication skills because I had doctors, dentists, all levels of hospital personnel reporting to me.
Uh, Basically, I have two more questions. What what would you say to any woman, any female who wants a career in the military? What would be your advice to them?
I would encourage them to join. I let them know that there are some real that they will make sacrifices the same way everybody else makes sacrifices. But if they are really committed, do attend the school and programs that all military are required to attend because being training and readiness is what you do in the military. You must be ready to be deployed. And most of the times when you're called up, you don't have time to start at the beginning of training. You have to be trained and ready to go, except for a few last minute things that you could do within, say, 72 hours, maybe to a week.
Well, one last thing. You participated in a oral history at Asbury, and anybody who wants to know really extensively about Dr. General Drake, I almost did what Denise did, gave you a new title, General Drake. You can contact Asbury's Oral History Archives, and Adele Banks has done an excellent job talking about your career. If they want more details, and they definitely should. But do you see yourself as a historic figure, General Drake? And what relationship did you have with Hazel Johnson and some of the other African American females who managed to become generals?
Well, actually, I would think more than being a historical, it would be more like a role model for younger people, especially young officers in the military, in the National Guard, and some other units that we communicated and worked with. I did know Brigadier General Hazel Johnson Brown. She was the first Black to become the chief of the Army Nurse Corps. So that she was in a leadership role where she was responsible for nurses throughout the entire military. And the second Black person to hold that role was Brigadier General Clara Adams Ender, who is also a historical person in some of the unique experiences that she had. And she also became the commander of Fort Belvoir before she retired.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Denise.
Thank you, James, and thank you, General Drake. Yeah, I'm going to go and look for that historical video that Asbury has. I really would love to see that. And I just want to thank you, not only, again, General Drake, for your service, but for serving us today and being on this show. It's a pleasure to meet you. And again, just thank you so very much. And thank you, James.
Thank you.
All righty. We're going to move now to Lieutenant Colonel Moesha Walker. Say that again. No, I'm saying say that again. I need to say that again. Moesha. Moesha, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you are, you lead the chaplaincy team at the U.S. Ladies?
So I'm what we call the Joint Base Senior Chaplain at
Okay.
Bowling. So the 11th Wing is my primary responsibility.
Wonderful. How did you get there? And I don't mean like, did you drive there this morning? I didn't mean that. You know what I mean? It's just your journey into the military, and then also a Joint Base Anacostia.
Sure. So how I got here is different from what has kept me here. How I got here in terms of military service really is my bonus dad saw leadership skill in me in high school, and he said, "You're going to college and you will join ROTC." So I had no desire initially to serve, but I really grew to love the community that ROTC provided me and continuous development of leadership skills. So what has kept me here really has been my desire and appreciation of serving with airmen, loving on airmen, and loving God and being in position to serve in full-time ministry, specifically in this capacity. What I think brought me to Joint Base Anacostia Bowling is timing. I think timing is critical. So right before this assignment, I was at Marine Corps Base Quantico in a leadership school for 10 months. And my husband had recently separated from active duty and is currently in law school at Catholic University. So my heart's desire was, can I stay in this area while my husband finishes law school? And so it happened to be that there was a vacancy at Joint Base Anacostia Bowling at the same time that I was coming out of school at Quantico. So I think it was divine, but timing matters as well. And I absolutely love it here.
Well, we're really grateful because you're a neighbor. So that makes it even great. We're right up the street, and we have others on this phone, on this call, the William O. Lockridge Foundation and others who are right in the neighborhood. So it's good to have you here. I'm just curious. I mean, I know that it's a challenge for you, to help people, even in the military, to hold on to their faith. But then as we went through this whole, with the pandemic and all the things that kept people isolated, did that make your job even harder?
So yes and no. I would say largely it forced us as chaplains and religious affairs airmen to be more creative in our delivery of ministry. I think it's one thing for us to be used to all being together whether it's for worship in the chapel or walking through the respective units to just see how people are doing. We didn't have that luxury, and so we had to figure out how to connect with people from a distance, and we didn't necessarily have those platforms in place, so we had to rush to get those platforms in place and be okay with not having the privilege of being in one another's presence physically, but just taking advantage of what can we do electronically to make sure people know that we still care and that we will all get through this together.
And so, what kind of services do you offer for the personnel there at Joint Base Anacostia?
Sure. So, religious accommodation is one of our primary core competencies or capabilities as a chaplain corps, whether it's a certain diet or desire to wear certain religious garb or to not receive the vaccine for religious reasons, etc. So, religious accommodation is what we provide. We also provide spiritual fitness, which looks very different from base to base, according to what people need on that installation, as well as leadership advisement. So, leadership advisement is on all things spiritual, religious, moral, ethical, and with regard to the morale of the personnel in the units. We provide one specific thing we provide that I certainly want you to be aware of is what we call 100% confidentiality. And that is such a privilege. It's a safe space for anyone to come and talk to a chaplain or religious affairs airman about anything on their hearts. So what makes us unique and what upholds 100% is that there are no exceptions to that rule. If someone comes in to me and says, I'm struggling, I'm thinking about taking my life, I don't want to, but that's what's on my mind. If I were a licensed therapist, most likely outside of this chaplain career field, I would be required to report that. However, as military chaplains, we offer that 100% confidentiality. And our job is to help that person find hope again and hang on without us violating that confidentiality and reporting them. So talking to a chaplain is super safe.
Does it trickle down, Chaplain Wilson, to even children of the military? Some of the, there are lots of families there over at Joint Base Anacostia. So, what about the younger folks that are there that are not service people themselves, but they're the family members? Do you provide services for them as well?
We provide the very same services for our dependents, and dependents could be spouse and or children, as well as other what we call authorized personnel. So we specifically at Joint Base Anacostia Bowling, I'm not going to turn anybody away who comes in our office just because perhaps they may not fall under the authorized personnel category. If you are a human being and you had the courage to come and say, I need help, let's talk. That's all that matters to me.
So on this Veterans Day, I don't know if you all had to plan something special or how that worked. What is there anything special that you're doing or any special messages you have for, our military servicemen and women that we can take away from this interview today?
Sure. So we did not plan anything specific for veterans today or this weekend, but what I would say is thank you to each veteran for giving of yourself in ways that perhaps you have changed since you served as a result of serving. So often, I think most of us kind of go on about our lives, whether we've served 4 years or longer, or retired, or separated, or medically retired because of physical changes as a result of serving. And so I don't take for granted the ways we come in and the ways we exit that aren't pleasant. And so I'm so grateful for the privilege of still wearing this uniform, but I'm even more grateful to every person who has taken their respective uniform off and they continue to live with the cost of freedom. So I want them to know that their labor is not in vain. And I hope that they take advantage of every resource that the VA makes available to support them as a result of fighting for freedom.
Wonderful. I want to thank you for that that message. I figured, as the chaplain, you could give us some words of inspiration, all of us, but particularly those who have served. And, just to end on that note, I want to thank you for being with us.
Thank you,
And thank you. All righty. Have a great day.
you as well.
All righty. We're going to move quickly now to Lorraine Wright. And, we have Lorraine as well as the William O. Lockridge Foundation folks we'll be talking to. So we're running over, but that's okay because, it's Veterans Day. It's a holiday. Folks are just watching us, right? So, Lorraine, if you could take yourself off of mute and we can learn a little bit more about the Sheck Corporation, it would be a pleasure to have that
You got
conversation
it.
with you.
Can you hear me now?
I
Perfect.
can hear you now. So
Good stuff.
you create this the Sheck Corporation. You actually provide services to veterans, but did you yourself serve in the military?
I actually did not. The Sheck's House Corporation came about through my grandfather, Corporal Sheck Wright, who was in the Korean War. And as a child, my grandfather and I would talk about this program that he wanted to put together. He took his time in the military very serious. And I would just listen to all the things that he wanted to do. And he would constantly go to the VA hospital and he would pass out money and he'd give rides and he'd help his fellow servicemen in any way that he could. So unfortunately, he was not able to be here to see his vision come to life. But when I got a chance to do it, I actually just ran with the program. And now that's what we have today, Sheck's House Corporation.
So you're doing two things. One, you're building a nonprofit, and two, you're providing services. I mean, that's a lot to take on. Besides, listening to your grandfather's stories, what is it that, motivated you or inspired you to take this leap?
Well, he was such a huge impact on my life. My grandfather raised me, and I saw his structure and determination that he got from the military. And I kind of took that on my shoulders as well as I went through life and as I raised my own daughter. And myself and my daughter are actually co-founders of the program. And we wanted to just make sure that we were able to honor him in such a way that he would be so proud of us because of what he instilled in us.
Well, you've opened shop on Good Hope Road in Southeast DC.
Yes, ma'am.
In the middle of an area that has a lot of problems, but yet you're there, kind of like the light to help people through that. And so, what kind of services actually are you providing for, and to whom? At your
We
location?
are providing a 12-month transitional housing for homeless veterans. We are actually all branches of the military. We'll be doing housing, we'll do employment service, we'll do suicide prevention, transportation, job readiness, and financial literacy.
That's amazing, because all of those, of course, are greatly needed. And as we just heard from the chaplain, people go into the military one way and they may come out another. And sometimes it's not always pleasant and they need to land someplace. So I know that you all just recently opened, but how long have you been serving in the community?
Well, we are actually in the process of opening. We're still doing some renovations to our building. And Denise, it's so sad because I think a lot of people fail to realize that not everyone that goes into the military comes out with issues. And that's a lot of the drawback that we got when we started this program. Everyone thought that we were doing drug addicts and recovering murderers. And it was just really bad, the impression that everyone had about our servicemen. And we want to let them know that there are functioning service people who come out and they just need a little bit of help. They come out with these amazing skills and they just don't know where to begin to use them. And that's where we come in as a society to help them get back on their feet. They're fine when they go in and protect us and serve us and make this world better for us. But when they come back, they have nothing. They have nothing to look forward to. And they have so many benefits that a lot of them are not even aware that they qualify for.
Wow, that's a mission. It sounds like that the Sheck House is taking on. And will this be a living facility as well? I mean, you said for homeless vets, will there be housing for them as well, or are you actually providing locations where they can find housing?
Oh, yes, ma'am. We'll definitely be doing 12 months of living, temporary, transitional. And what we'll do is in the first 6 months, we'll give them housing, and then we'll also help them find a job, careers. Like really stable jobs with corporations. Anyone that wants to go back to school, we'll definitely help them with that. Career building, resume training, job readiness. And then we'll help them get off and get all the skills that they need for permanent housing within those 12 months.
So it sounds like, I don't know if everything's in place because you're setting up. What about volunteers? Can people come and support your program?
Oh, absolutely. That's how we're getting a lot of our work done. We are actually sponsored by Verizon and Motorola Solutions, and they have been absolutely amazing. They've provided us with over 80 volunteers to help us get the building ready. We are definitely open to taking any volunteers that want to help with any service, any construction that they can help us with, anybody that wants to come in and help with our veterans, anybody that actually would love to just come in and be a part of this program. You can reach us online at shexhouse.org, and we are taking any volunteers that we can get.
Wonderful. Volunteers and donations, I'm sure, because
And
you're a nonprofit, so we know how that works. Yeah.
Well, we don't want our servicemen to pay for anything or worry about anything while they're in our program. We want to pay for all of the housing, transportation, their personal necessities, their food, everything that they need, so that they don't have that worry on their shoulders while they're trying to transition into stable living. So we want to make sure that we're able to provide everything for them so that they can focus on the task at hand at getting themselves back into a great position.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful mission, and we certainly wish you much success, because your success means the success for all of the individuals that you are helping, and so that helps the community overall. So thank you, Lorraine Wright, for being with us today. And for sharing.
And I also wanted to let you know that we are requiring our veterans to pay it forward. When they get in our program, we want them to also go back to the community and help someone else. Share the same experiences that they're dealing with people in the community, help the people in Ward 8 as well with anything that they need, so that we are also building each other up and not just only ourselves. So that's our main focus, on making sure that we're now a village, as we call it. We want to help each other.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Lorraine Wright, thank you very much for being with us, and good luck with your program.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
All righty. We're going to jump now because they've been so patiently waiting, and sometimes we do this to our friends. But Wanda Lockridge, the founder and CEO and chief bottle washer and everything else for the William O. Lockridge Foundation, thank you for being with us, Wanda. And I think we have Hayward Donaldson and Stefan Lockridge with us as well. So thank you for being with us. Tell us, I'm excited. We're going to have Men in Black.
Men in Black.
Yeah, tell us. Well, first, let's talk about the foundation. I want you to give some background on that.
Absolutely. But let me first just say Happy Veterans Day, and to all those who served and sacrificed for our freedoms. We appreciate you, and kudos to your amazing guests today for all the work that they are doing for our servicemen and women. It's an amazing program that you have. So thank you. So a little bit about the foundation. So we started in 2011. We started after the passing of my husband, William Lockridge, who served on the board for the State Board of Education for about 15, 16 years. And we started a foundation just to do a tad bit of some of the work that he was doing in closing the gap for our students here east of the river, Ward 7 and 8. So that's just a beginning of it.
Wonderful. But I mean, we've talked before, we've had some of your young people on, you've taken them to the continent of Africa, you've done scholarship programs, you've given away, you tell the number because I'm always amazed by it, but how much you've given away in scholarships?
So to date, we've given $240,000 in scholarships in the duration since we've been in existence.
That is fantastic. Fantastic. And Mr. Donnerson,
yes,
you're on the board, and you've been supporting the Lockridge Foundation for years. I mean, from I called Wanda the chief bottle washer, but I think actually you've been washing the bottles.
All right.
Everything you do has been really supportive, and so I'm glad you're here with us. But tell us what you do for the foundation.
Well, I sit on the board of directors, and I'm a part of the communications committee. So we assist with just trying to deal with community engagement and getting the word out about all the work that the Lockridge Foundation and the Lockridge family is doing. I joined the Lockridge Foundation in 2011 when I was introduced to Miss Lockridge by Miss Barbara Jones at the funeral of Mr. Lockridge. So I'm a real community servant. I love Ward 8. Ward 8 is my second home. And I just wanted to do something to really just give back, because this woman, she's such a caregiver, and she's so caring for everyone. And I just wanted to give back and do something without any money being expected or anything like that. So.
Wow, everybody loves a board member like you. So that's great. And then, of course, we have Stefan Lockridge, who's with us and talking about bottles. We know that he grew up in the Lockridge home. He's your son, but also a member of the board. Is it chair of the board? Vice chair?
Yes, I'm vice chair, and I want to first thank you all for having me. I'm actually, excuse my background, I had to make sure my family was safe, so we drove down to a wedding to make sure my wife was not driving by herself. So excuse the background, but I just wanted to make sure, everyone is knowing that, the foundation is definitely a huge part of my life, and not even just the foundation, but just community activism and just being able to help out whoever I can, whenever I can, is just something that's been in my blood. So, whatever I can do to help out. I'm a music production teacher right now at KIPP Legacy Prep. So again, it's just been a tradition of community activism and helping as much as possible.
Well, the good news is you're standing outside. So that means that the Nicole, the weather issue that we've been dealing with she must have gone on someplace else, because you're outside. So that's great. But I'm glad that you all are here, because we're going to talk about the event, Dancing with the Scholars. Wanda, how did you come up with this idea of Dancing with the Scholars?
So while we were thinking about fundraising, and so many organizations, they do dinners, they do luncheon, and we figured that most of the dollars go to food and beverage and venues. And we wanted to do something fun, but we also wanted to make some money for the programs that we offer. So at this time, it was Dancing with the Stars. It was such a big hit back in 2011 when we started the foundation, and we were around the table and we were thinking about ideas about what to do. And, we said, let's do something with Dancing with the Stars. Well, actually, it was Emily Washington who came up with the title Scholars. And we were around the table and everybody lighted just went off. They were like, Dancing with the Scholars. That is absolutely perfect, because we're taking our high school students and we're introducing them to just a number of things that they may not have had an opportunity. And it's a lot of fun. And I thought today it would be really good to bring in my son and the board member, because the theme is Men in Black. And we want to celebrate our strong Black community men here that's doing the thing. They're stepping up every single day. And so we thought we would honor our kings this year.
Wow. I mean, it's great. And for those who don't quite understand, but the show Dancing with the Stars, you have just regular people that are dancing with real dancers. And in this case, I don't know if you even have real dancers. The scholars like to dance. They're cool. They can show us the new beats, even though not all of them have been that great, but is what makes it so much fun. And then you have had elected officials who are their dance partners. And even some of them are great and most of them aren't, but that's what makes it so entertaining. I love it. So who are we going to have this time around?
So this year, and you're absolutely right, the whole idea is to have elected officials to dance with our students. And this year we have past and current. So we have Councilmember Robert White, who will be coming the first time around. And it's so interesting because you see him on the dais all the time and he's always so serious. So to see him out of that element and to have fun and dancing, I haven't seen it in rehearsals at all. I am looking forward to seeing that myself. And then we have Marcus Batchelor, who served on the State Board of Education representing Ward 8. And we have Wendell Felder, Ward 7, Dems president, who's also performing with us this year. So just to see any of them out of their element is going to be just a lot of fun.
And their dance partners are coming from what schools?
This year we have Anacostia, we have Friendship Tech on Martin Luther King Avenue. And interesting enough, Kumba, which is on Martin Luther King Avenue, I actually thought it was like an elementary school. It's a high school. So when we had the information out for people to sign up, we had a young lady to sign up there. So those are the 3 schools that we have this year.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So that, I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. If you are interested in going, people want to attend, tell us where, the time, tickets, share that with us.
Absolutely. So you can get tickets online. You can go to our website either at williamlockridgecommunityfoundation.org. And thank you so much for putting the ticket information there at tinyurl.com/DWTSXII for Dancing with the Scholars 12. This is our 12th year. Doors open at 6:30 and the show starts at 7.
And it will take place at the Arc?
It will take place at the Arc. They have been such a great partner. We've been there every year with the exception of the 1 year where we had to go online because of the pandemic. But yeah, they've been wonderful partners. We'll be back there again this year.
Wonderful. I just want to, I mean, selfish or selfless promotion. If you didn't get all that, you can go to the Washington Informer, our current issue, and the information is there as well. And it may be a QR code there as well for you to be able to purchase tickets. We certainly hope that it's going to be a wonderful event. Stefan, anything else you want to add?
So this year is a bit special for me. I'm actually one of the lead speakers at the event, so I'm really excited to share my perspective on, my father. Really, that's something I really want to highlight this year. The work he's done and the family man he is. So I'm excited to speak, and I'm taking this time actually while I'm out of the city to start writing my speech. So
wonderful.
I'll be,
Well, I know
you
doing
that.
You have a young man in your household who is Stefan Lockridge. I don't know if you call him Junior or not, but Little Steph, who is quite a speaker himself. And so, if you need some help, I'm sure you can go to him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to definitely help me out. He's going to give me some guidance because right now he is the speaker outside of my wife. He's definitely the speaker, and I don't know how I'm the teacher and I'm like third in rank when it comes to that. So
and he is how old now?
He's 13.
13. Wow,
years
amazing,
old. Yes,
amazing.
indeed.
Yeah, and Haywood, how about you?
We're getting ready for high school.
Oh wow, geez.
Yes, geez.
Haywood.
Well, I just want to say, Ms. Barnes, I'm going to take this time to say how appreciative, and I want everyone to understand the hard work that this queen bee, Miss Wanda Lockridge, does behind the scenes. I mean, she is really doing her best, organizing sponsorships, getting kids to Africa, planning all kinds of things. And she does it so selflessly and with a smile, and she's looking beautiful and everything like that. But I also wanted to say something too, real quick, because I haven't been able to say this publicly, and I'm glad I'm on this platform to say it to Miss Rolock Barnes. Thank you for all that you do for the city. And I'm just saying that between Ms. Barnes and Ms. Lockridge, 50 years from now, you all don't understand the impact that you all are making on our community right now. So let me say thank you for all that you do.
You're hired, Haywood.
See, that's why I had to bring him along here.
All right. No, thank you so much. And I know you've always been there supporting. And I think this event is one of those that people are really, really going to enjoy. I'm glad that you're on the team to make sure it happens. I don't know what other folks say, but if you really think that I have some influence, go out and get your tickets now to Men in Black, Dancing with the Scholars next Saturday. Want to see you there at the Arc. It's going to be a great event, and What about your judges? Let me ask you that other question too.
Yeah, so this year, thanks for asking. This year, generally we have the city council member judging, but because it's all about the men, we have women judging this year. So we have our State Board of Education representative. So we have Ebony Rose Thompson out of Ward 7. We have Dr. Carlene Reed out of Ward 8, and we have Jessica Sutter out of Ward 6. And before I go, I would be totally remiss if I didn't thank you, Denise, and the Washington Informer for always, literally always supporting us and the Lockridge Foundation and being a great sponsor and a partner with us. We truly appreciate it.
Well, it's all about community. That's what we do. And so it's good to be in lockstep with people who have the same values and actually are doing work as well. So it's great. It's great. Well, I will see you on the 19th, if not
Sounds
before.
good.
But thank you so much for being with us. And thank you for your patience. And have a
We
great
definitely bring
holiday.
our patient with us. Can I say one
Thank
last
you.
thing? I know we're running
Yes,
out of
sir.
time, but we have an amazing sponsor this year that wanted to offer 10 tickets to your audience. So if anyone wanted tickets, they can reach out to you, or they can reach out to us at info@williamlockridgecommunityfoundation.com. But we would love to give these tickets out on behalf of our sponsors.
Okay, so we'll just say that if you're listening and you are interested, you can also email us here at news@washingtoninformer.com, either one of those email addresses, and we'll make sure we get that to you if we hear from our viewers as well, Wanda.
Sounds great. Thanks
All
so
right.
much, again.
Thank you. All right.
Take
Have a
care.
wonderful
See you
weekend.
Saturday.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of Win TV. We went over, but it's a holiday, and we figure you all don't have anything else to do but watch us, right? Hopefully. But and I think it's wonderful if you did. We want to thank you for joining the show. I want to, of course, thank our producer Chevy Lassiter for bringing all these wonderful military folks and veterans. And if you notice, they were all women. And we didn't acknowledge that because service is service, no matter no matter who you are or your capacity. If you want to serve and you're willing to serve, people are there to receive and need it. So, but today we were just so happy to honor all of these great women. And for those who are out there, again, we want to thank you for your service. And we hope that you have a wonderful holiday and a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you next week. Same place, same channel. See ya. So long.